Now that you know what your assignment is, you're probably wondering what responsive web design is. So what we made previously was a fixed width web page. And you could look at it as though you are taking a Word document and you print it off on a sheet of paper, right? You can't change it. It's just that size. And no matter what size, you can't scale it in any way. It's the content the way that it is, and it's not adjustable. So for example, if you look at my web page here, you'll see that the content does scale and it shifts and it moves around. That's responsive. What we were making before, if we pull the corner over, it will just overlap. It was not responsive. It was just one solid size, and it was exactly that width and exactly that height. Okay. Responsive, what it does is it will shift the elements around depending on the device, the resolution, and the aspect ratio of what is being viewed on. So sometimes I'll also refer to it as mobile first design. A really good example is actually phones, right? So you might be on your cell phone and you can view a web page this way, right, in horizontal landscape, or you can see it in vertical portrait. And depending on the phone, you might view it one way or the other. So the elements need to be able to shift around to support those different aspect ratios. Also, the different devices, right? So typically more people are on the internet now on their mobile devices, meaning phones and perhaps tablets, than they are on desktops or laptops. So that means that you have to have your web page work for any one of those devices, and that's typically why we say mobile first, because if we can make it work on mobile, you can scale it up to make it work on a desktop. So each one of those devices have different aspect ratios. Like phones typically have a very long aspect ratio, where typically a computer screen will be usually 16:10 or 16:9. Your television screen will be 16:9 typically, unless you have an overly stretched one. A lot of monitors, I know you guys will have like those really, especially those gamers, they'll have like the long curved ones. Those obviously are much more like anamorphic widescreen, but typical widescreen is 16:9. So there's different resolutions depending on, or there's different aspect ratios depending on those different devices, right? Even if you were to look at within the Apple products, right? Every iteration of phone has a different pixel density, has a different number of pixels inside their phones. They generally are going up as time goes by. But even within their own devices, there's a large range. If you look at like the iPhone, whatever it is now, and then there's a Pro and maybe a Plus and a whatever, right? They have different like, X or something. I think they usually have 3 or 4 different versions of that iPhone. Those resolutions of each of those iPhones are different. The iPad obviously is higher resolution than an iPhone. The Mac is higher. A MacBook would be higher than an iPad, and then an iMac would be higher than that. And then if you had, a desktop PC that hooked up to a monitor, it could be even higher. Typically, I would say most PCs usually range within that 1920 by 1080 resolution, but more and more they're going higher than that now. So a lot of people want to do 4K gaming and that sort of thing, or watch 4K video. So the resolution of computer screens are getting higher as well. I think it makes sense for TVs. I really don't feel like on an iMac, I guess maybe my eyes aren't that good, but I don't feel like I would really even notice it at this point. It just seems like wasted pixels. But the idea here is that we want to make our web pages be viewable on a whole variety of devices. The fixed width that you created before was absolutely a certain size. So on certain screens, it would be very small. It would only take up like this top left corner. But then on another screen, it might go past the screen and be off the screen on the side, because there's different resolutions of things. So you don't want to scale your web page based on absolute pixels. You want to do it based on percentages, EMs, vertical width, all the various other things. You'll see what I'm talking about in a while. So responsive web design basically just allows the web page to respond to the device in the screen, more or less.